Welcome, everybody. Thank you, BCTV, for being here to record our meeting. This is the Monday, April 28th, 2025, meeting of what's called the Belchertown Opioid Settlement Funds Advisory Committee. Committee convened by the Select Board here in Belchertown. So welcome. Those of you who are watching this once it becomes, whether it's live or whether you're going to watch it taped. So I'm Gail Garmarosa. I'm currently serving as the chair of this committee. So I want to call the meeting to order at about, for us, 10:07 a.m. Those of you watching it on video might be a different time, but for us right now, 10:07 a.m. I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves so you know who is on the committee. Each of us is fulfilling a slot on the committee as designated when the committee was put together. We also have some guests with us, so we'll have everybody do that. Then we'll do a few updates on topics from prior meetings, but I'm also expecting that we'll spend a good amount of time. We have folks here from the Belchertown Public Schools. We'll have some conversation about their application for funding, and then I also want to talk about another application that I apologize to the applicant, Honest Beginnings, apologize to the committee that I didn't send it out in time. And frankly, it just it slipped my mind, unfortunately. But we do have, I know we have talked about some of their needs. They have come to us at previous meetings, and they have submitted an official application. So we'll talk a little bit more about our strategy for having the committee have a chance to review it as well. But so today, definitely talking about the application that I hope everybody had a chance to read through from the schools. Last but not least, just also to say, anybody who's watching live or who thought about GoToMeeting, unfortunately our GoToMeeting technology is not working for us today. So we'll try to let folks know that at least it's really good that BCTV is here. There'll be a video recording of the meeting for anybody who wants to watch it either now or at a later date. So let me stop there and have each of the committee members and then guests introduce themselves. And I'll start all the way to my left.
Good morning. Kim Dewey, pediatrician in town and boat representative on the committee.
Jill Rossi, I'm the town accountant, and I'm the financial person.
Great. Extremely valuable, both of you, and the rest as well. Just to note, as I said, I'm the chair. I'm serving as the community member. That's the official role that I fill on this team.
Chris Hogue, Director of Jeffrey Communities and School Representative.
Neil Ozier, Belchertown Police Department, Law Enforcement Representative.
Emily Kirby, Director of Community Health for the town of Ware, and I'm the Quabbin Health Substance Use Alliance representative.
Great. And our guests who are here, feel free, introduce yourself.
Sean Gordon, I'm the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning for the Belchertown Public Schools.
Great, welcome.
Lauren Kelly, she/her, Hampshire Hope Coordinator out of Northampton, DHHS.
Great, welcome. Always happy. Hampshire Hope has been a great advisor and gives us a countywide perspective. So we appreciate that. We appreciate folks taking time out from the schools to be here as well. Great. Let me move on to the next part of our agenda. Like I said, a couple of quick updates that we'll check in on, and then we'll move into more conversation about the schools. Any updates from committee members? I know several committee members thinking about taking the lead on, as well as trying to think about how we're going to populate the web page for the committee on the town's website so that we would do that. So any updates anybody wants to share on where that's at?
Last week I forwarded what I had given out for the start of the website. I forwarded it to Kate, the communications director.
Great.
And we haven't spoken about it yet, but at least we're that far ahead. I'm looking forward to a link from Chris, who she and Aline are putting together.
Oh, do you want that?
An exhaustive list.
Do you want the list itself, or do you want the? Because
I don't know. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, it's going to be. It's supposed to be posted under the boat website.
Yeah.
And I just had communication from Melissa over here the other mission statement hasn't been updated on that website. So like, there's a bunch of stuff that hasn't been done yet. But those lists, once they're up there, you guys can just like
Okay.
actually create a direct link
Link
Yeah.
to
it.
that.
Yep,
Okay.
great. That all sounds good to me. If other committee members have any questions, I think it fits with what we had talked about, trying to make the webpage informative, but not too overwhelming. And because there are other links and other partners and other resources where we could link to their link and then there's more information, I think that's probably a good way to go. And then as other organizations update it, strikes me, Lauren, too, we should have a link to Hampshire Hope on our webpage as a countywide group, and obviously Quabbin Health Substance Use Alliance, too, and maybe others, Recovery Center we've talked about. But yeah, then as our partners and other agencies update their own stuff, our link is hopefully still good, and we're relying on folks to update, while we also then think about, what our page looks like. As I look at some of the other town committees, as well as boards, and even some of the departments, the aim is as navigatable as possible, so, lots of links without overwhelming people.
Right.
So, sounds good.
Okay.
Anything else on the website? Any other suggestions? We've got a structure. We've reached out to communications, pulling together BOAT and QHSUA and Hampshire Hope and other links. Anything else on the webpage? Nope. Sounds good? Okay, great. Sounds like we're making progress. Thank you to those of you who are in communication about that in between meetings. Great. Next under our discussion section of the agenda, just wanted to update the committee on a conversation that I had with the Quabbin Health District Public Health Director. So just to remind everybody and anybody who's watching, over the past few meetings, we've had folks from the communities of what are called the Mill Towns Shared Services Group. So if I get them right, Palmer, Ludlow, West Brookfield, and Warren, as well as folks from East Hampton who have this social worker model, some of which is funded by opioid settlement funds. So we heard from other communities that have done that and have done it as part of their public health infrastructure. So obviously we know we are Belchertown is part of the Quabbin Health District. 3 towns, Ware and Pelham are the other 2. So I just had a one-on-one conversation with Andrea Crete, who's the public health director, just to get a sense of, is it even feasible for us to continue thinking about and talking about this model for Belchertown in collaboration with our health department versus some other structure in town government. A couple of things that I think we noted and had been noted even by Kirsten, who is the public health nurse with the Quabbin Health District, that there are definitely some limitations, and Andrea, raised those limitations in the conversation. One of which, as we wondered about, is that because it's a 3-town district, their preference is that whatever services they get engaged with, whatever resources they go after, that they would apply to all 3 towns. And she wasn't sure that that was as feasible with Pelham. She wasn't sure about the need for it, as well as in Ware, she felt like they already have a collaboration with the Family Center under Behavioral Health Network and other resources that are literally like down the road from them in downtown Ware, that she felt already serve that function as providing links to social workers. So that was one limitation. She also expressed some concern about capacity of taking on, and based on her background, taking on a social worker as an additional staff person. And how would that be potentially sustainable, particularly if and when opioid dollars were to, sort of be, from year to year. Also, she wondered about whether or not, obviously, a social worker, as we heard from some of the other towns and communities that have this model, that they only partially fund it with opioid money and they have other dollars to support it. So she wondered where those other dollars would come from. And that might mean, doing some grants. She also wondered a bit, although I wondered whether, it might be a little bit, there might be some creative ways to overcome it. But she also expressed some concern just about physical space for staff in the offices that they currently have, both in Ware and in Belchertown, particularly here in Belchertown. So I guess I would say overall, and I'm open, let me stop in a second, other questions that you might have. Overall, the conversation felt to me, and we pretty much agreed, that it may be advantageous for this group to look at a different model, whether it's embedded. We talked about whether East Hampton has something embedded in the police department. Other communities might have it. We raised the issue of human resources. But it sounded, and Andrea is still open to the conversation, but what I heard was that there's a fair amount of potential issues to work through and overcome. She obviously would also need to be in consultation with her boards, particularly the Belchertown Board of Health, but also the other boards, as they often share information, share resources, share services, and that, again, they tend to like to do more, that something applies to all three towns rather than just one out of the three.
So, with that being said, I know that, like, as far as resources are concerned, Palmer has a model where they meet twice a month, right? At the library with people around resources.
Yep.
We could certainly, like, we've talked about that model.
Yep. Look at that model. Yep.
I know Neil brought it up before. I brought it up to Kirsten Krieger in our last boat meeting, and then we spoke about it after. And Kirsten and I are definitely on board in getting that up and running in Belchertown.
Okay.
The location, I guess, would be TBA, but after the Umbrella Wellness Fair is done, we are going to set up a schedule to meet to discuss that.
Okay.
So at least, that helps out here in Belchertown with those resources. Of course, boat, we have tons of resources. I mean, when we have 70 tables coming to a fair tabling, we're pretty well connected as well, which we do a lot of tabling events, and I just feel like there's an overlap with the resource center and the recovery center being in Ware.
Yep.
I don't know. I think, maybe starting off with having to see what the need is too,
Right.
And maybe having that twice a month to see what the need is, and if the need is like really great, maybe we move forward with looking at other models. That's just an idea.
Yep. Sure.
I think another thing that we could reconsider is transportation.
Yep.
If Ware has all this stuff,
Right.
and
then
we
how
are
do we
under
get
the
people
Quabbin
there?
Health
Right.
District, can
Right.
we just get Belchertown people to Ware and to those resources?
Yep.
So
Okay.
we just
Sorry, we were just making.
We were just talking about meeting.
we just had a training in which we were discussing all of the resources and everything around and how to go about. It was sponsored by SAMHSA, right?
Yeah, so
Okay.
so part of the SAMHSA Gain Center, Hampshire Hope did a 2-day sequential intercept mapping that Neil was a part of, and one of the strategic priorities that came out of it was thinking about transportation due to creating greater access, especially for our rural communities.
So that led me to, some of you know where my wife's business is, and I'm looking at the car dealership that has 12 Humes vans sitting there. So I go knock on his door and say, what's going on with this? And he's like, he's got a contract with Humes that he purchases it for him, and then he was going to get rid of them at the end by going into auction. And then he's like, well, actually I could, instead of taking them to auction, you have to clean them up really well and stuff, and so that they look good. He is just selling them out of his lot, and they go anywhere from, I think he said, like $3,000 to $12,000 or $13,000 for those vans. But you have to take into consideration that they are old. They're 10 years old or more. But some of them have lifts, some of them don't. So I wanted to actually, see what I, could do with that. And then I thought about, I haven't done it yet, but I'm wondering if you could go to like maybe Humes and say, okay, maybe not one of your 10-year-old, but maybe one of your 8-year-old or 7-year-old vans. Would you be willing to sell them? Or would he be able to, could we, and then, so you're not talking really a lot of money. I thought we were going to be looking at, $40,000 for a vehicle, but I'm not sure what you're going to get at that price point, but it's still an option that's right in town. We're keeping it local. We're not, breaking the bank if that's the case.
I think the issues with that though, like, so then who runs it,
All right.
right?
That's
Right, then
Who
who's the
drives,
driver?
who drives it,
Who
what's the
insures it?
insurance,
Yeah.
where
Who
does
has
it
the
fall
insurance?
under?
Right.
But I do think
Right.
that's worth exploring.
Right.
Even if it's just that Friday morning, like the first
Right.
Friday of the
Yep.
month,
Right.
get people
Right.
out there, like
Yep.
then it's scheduled, it's set. The first Friday of the month, go to the pancake breakfast and then have a meeting and see the resource center. And if we start filling the van, then we know that it's a successful
That there's a
program.
need,
And so
right.
then you expand it and maybe it's every other Friday or every Friday or one Friday and another day of the week.
Well, the other thing is maybe go to Humes and say,
I think we did.
Yeah.
Gail
Oh,
talked
Yeah,
to
I had a conversation with them, and I think you're right. The concern was, they totally supported the concept. They said, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. On the other hand, they were worried about their own capacity for their current contracts, more so with drivers than actual
okay.
vehicles.
Okay.
But as you say, the recovery center, remember, they have that guiding rides program, right? They've got their own van.
Have you talked to Julie about potentially setting up a time for them to come here on Fridays to pick people up and bring them back to breakfast?
I think that might be the next step, as well as thinking about I know in some conversations I've had with them, that would an additional van be to their advantage, not just for, so then it could help Belchertown folks. I think you're right, maybe start with that Friday morning.
That conversation has happened.
Okay.
That conversation has happened, and what we had brainstormed about it, and definitely on board. I mean, Julie's and Sue are both great supporters of our
Yeah.
program.
Yeah.
One of the issues that we had was, okay, if we have transportation, where do we set that pickup from? Remember we had that?
Yeah, yeah.
Where
And then
where
how
do
do
we set it?
people
How do
get
people
to
get
Right,
to
that
because if we
pickup
have
point?
people
right.
down at like Lord Jeff, for instance, then they'll have to walk all the way up here to the center of town, and if they have a disability, that just for an example, that could impede them from coming.
Right.
So how do we?
Are there multiple pickup locations,
Right.
or just a few, or do you stop at
we
one
do
person's
sign-ups
house?
Yeah.
for
Right.
that? Do we do
Right.
sign-ups for it? How do we get the word out? Maybe we start.
And then what
we
are the
always
costs
start
involved,
small.
right.
Start small. Maybe we just start with a Friday and see how that goes
Right,
with the
one
pickup.
Friday,
but-
one pickup or maybe two pickup locations,
Locations,
on either end of
Right.
of sort of the main street, so like
Yep.
right here at the Common and in the CVS parking lot or
Right,
something like
right.
that.
Right.
So that
somewhere
people
where
from both
people
end of town, if you can at
might
least
be able
get
to
into
get
town,
Right. Right.
maybe start small and see if it grows, and if people are interested and we're getting people coming, then we ask them, what are your needs?
Right.
Do you need to be picked up at your house? Is this a hardship for you to get here?
Right.
Well, it's also a good reminder too. It's been a while, and I don't know, Emily, if you have any updates on it. I had conversations with the Quabbin Connector about this sort of same thing. Could we arrange for specific pickups? And again, at the time, their concern was trying to just meet the needs for other kinds of things, along with drivers, where again, the drivers and having trained certified drivers. I don't know if you have any other updates on, but all of them are worth pursuing.
The Quabbin Connector, the way the funding works for that, I don't think they're allowed to have specific times
Times,
where they
days,
pick
right.
people up. It has to be by appointment. That's the way their funding works,
Yeah.
from what I understand.
Right.
So they could pick up people
If they were to- right.
If people worked together
Gathered.
and did it the day before and made an appointment, they could come pick them up and bring them, but
Yeah.
it has to be by appointment.
It has to be
But
by
also maybe if
appointment.
there are special needs, so if people can get to the center of town and just, get a ride, that's fine. But somebody who has physical limitations, and needs a special, somebody to come to their house, maybe that's the way to go. They go through the Quabbin connector.
Yeah, the transportation thing is huge all around, though. I mean, if you look at, even, we've been working, Drug-Free Communities has been working with the probation office quite a bit. And so, one of their biggest things is transportation as well, because people that get in trouble, they might take an Uber or what have you to court, but then they have no transportation home. And the chief PO down there has said to me, they've had people that have come from Springfield and then have to walk. They've walked all the way home because they have no transportation here.
So there aren't really ride shares. There are not a lot of ride shares.
There's
that's
nothing
around
here,
Yeah.
none of that around here. So even, talking about local other needs, that's another huge need. And that would fall under this because, 90% of people that are in court it's related to alcohol or drugs, not necessarily directly that, but definitely it's part of it, so that could be something to look at too.
How about, I guess what I'm hearing, you tell me, where we want to go from here. I'm hearing that, so we've heard, Quabbin Health District, maybe, not necessarily able to jump on the idea of the social worker. Now we're thinking transportation to get folks to the recovery center, where they also have peer, recovery coaches and other people they can consult with and whatnot. Do we want to think about, between now and our next meeting, trying to solicit either some applications or even just have some of the transportation related folks, like we did with the social worker model, come to our next meeting and try to iron out what's feasible? I guess I'm trying to think of, there's got to be some potential costs involved for whether it's guiding rides, Quabbin connector, whatever it is, whether it's homes, Humes, whether it's other modes of transportation. So how do we try to get ourselves where we have some thought about what the costs might be, how they would think through what the costs might be, so then we might be looking at, even if it's a pilot program, I hear the idea of at least maybe trying to get people to that Friday morning series of programs at an afternoon series at the recovery center.
Does it make sense to do these couple meetings at the library or the police department or wherever first, and sort of gauge interest and get the word out and say, hey, we're looking to do this. Who would be interested? How many friends would you bring? What are we looking for? I don't know.
Okay.
I hate to sort of
I know
say,
what you're saying.
hey, there's going to be a bus here, and this is what we're going to do, and then nobody shows up.
No, I
and
think
now
you're
the
right.
pilot program failed, and now,
Nope, I
you're
think
sort of
you're
climbing an uphill battle.
I like that. And I guess I'm wondering, again, what I know of the Palmer meeting, it, takes place at their library, police and others involved. Are there costs involved that you need to think about now or later, whether you try it for a month or two, see how it goes? I think I agree that it would make sense. It's a good opportunity for more needs assessment. But if you all think about, and I'm looking at both of you because you've done it, and you know the model, think about what cost there might be. I feel like it's totally appropriate, even if it's just printing to print out handouts, whatever it is, business cards, whatever it might be, snacks, so that people have snacks when they come in. Then just think about, an amount of, just so that it can be supported. I think it feels to me, did everybody agree that it feels like a little bit of opioid money? It feels like an appropriate way to get more information, it's kind of some needs assessment, referrals, further information, and then think about that location and cost that might be involved.
What I'm kind of thinking about is, why couldn't PVTA just add a route? From start it in the center of Ware and go down to the center of South Hadley.
That would be great.
And, you're stopping in the center of Belchertown, you're stopping at the court, you're stopping at,
I know. I hear you.
The Granby Library,
I know.
I wonder what the cost of something like that would be. And you don't have to have like a huge giant bus, but
It's capacity.
I know,
I know.
and
It's
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 drivers,
It's
it's,
there, right.
And then on top of that is, if they do it for a month and no one shows up because no one knows about it yet, they're
Then
gonna be
they
like, oh,
say,
this is
there's no
pointless, we're not
need,
gonna do
right,
this.
I
right, but
know.
if it's funded,
I
If it's
know.
funded, maybe.
I know I haven't had any conversations. We were initially, starting out talking to some of our local transportation providers. If somebody wants to talk to PVTA, I'm happy to have that happen. I wish they would be a little more responsive. And I know we're not the only part of Hampshire or even Hampden County that struggles with, why doesn't the PVTA have this in place? It's really all those challenges, like you said, not to be optimistic about it. But if anybody wants to give them a call, would a little money help? Maybe, I don't know. But then, like you said, Emily, sometimes it's
If no one shows up.
if no one shows up, right,
Yeah.
I
Maybe
know.
if we do the meetings at the libraries, engage interest and see, hey,
Okay,
if there was this
okay.
Yeah, I
here.
think getting the meeting first is.
Okay,
Yeah.
still makes sense, okay,
And if
so
we
let's
need-
think about that,
If we
okay.
wanted to do like a survey or something, we could get our new epi to help with creating a survey for the
Okay.
town
Great, to be used maybe at these meetings.
at these meetings. so
And that would gauge, that's a good, I like that idea, because then at least whoever we might approach, you've got some
Yeah.
data.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, Emma would definitely do that for it.
great.
Could we also get the survey out at places, like at the courthouse, at Lord
Yeah,
Jeff, at
sounds like it.
CVS,
Yep.
at the
Okay.
library,
well,
just
wellness,
Yeah.
you know,
yeah,
Yeah, we
Yeah.
could.
if,
Yeah.
before the,
posted
yeah.
places.
Okay.
Appropriate.
Yeah,
Yep,
you could
okay.
you could print out some, so if people don't have access to
Yep,
the internet and
Yep.
like have a folder there so that they can put it in there or something, but we could also do like QR codes
Yeah, yeah.
very easily, yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome because then we could, Umbrella Wellness Fair is gonna be a huge hit. There's gonna be, I already anticipate over 500 people coming this year. So, right there, you
That's-
have a huge hit
Yeah.
if you can get it to me by then.
okay,
Before May 17th,
Does
so we
that
can
seem
print
feasible?
we'll print them
Okay.
out and stuff too.
okay,
But like I think after May 17th, like we'll set something up to get with Kirsten and then we'll figure out like how we're gonna
Okay.
move forward. So I think we'll start in June, we can look to start in June maybe,
okay.
like
Take some,
mid to
do
end
some
of June
planning,
with
yeah.
with the library.
And
Like,
then
we'll
think
shoot for
about,
that.
right, think about, like you said, think about what the location. In Palmer, they're still doing it at the public library, right? Is that their location? Yeah, which is, in Palmer, very central.
Does the bus, the city bus that comes from Amherst, it comes down through our town, right, and comes down to the common?
Mm-hmm.
And where is, like, Honest Beginnings? They're up
they're on Lower Federal Street, which is off
towards
of,
CVS.
No,
Towards the CVS side.
it's, where Route 9
Towards
towards
the
Amherst
lakes.
is?
Yeah, yeah.
It's the town beach, where the
Yeah.
town beach, it's
Yeah.
on that road.
That road down there.
And is there a bus stop?
They
up
would have to
there?
literally go to either end of Lower Federal Streets, and
Okay.
there's bus stops there.
There's bus stops there.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just wondering, like, if we could,
What's
like,
that?
could
I know,
we,
and-
much
and
right
they're
in the middle.
and,
Yeah, there's one at North Street. Yeah, but they are right in the middle of it.
could there be some sort of, like, reimbursement for bus fare if people want, if they could take that public bus to get to these meetings?
It's just how often does the bus go there?
Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
And they will be changing for a summer schedule too.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, right.
yeah.
But I wonder
there's
if we
summer
could,
schedule.
if we could set the meeting time at the library around that time and then provide either reimbursement for bus fare or some sort of voucher, a $5 gift card for food at Stop and Shop that would offset the cost. I don't know how much it costs to take the bus from one side of town to the other side, but if people I'm just trying to figure out how can we get more people there? How could we make it, overcome the
Right.
barriers to getting there? One of them being what we've already discussed, which is transportation.
Do they use cards on the bus here? Like
I don't know.
in Berkshire County, they use a Charlie card on the bus, so we could preload Charlie
No,
cards.
it's a good question. I think so, but I don't know for sure. Yeah, it's a good question.
I think all.
Sounds to me as well like maybe that's also a good question for a survey. If you had a
Yep.
voucher,
Yep.
if you had a card, if we helped with covering transportation costs that way, and you use existing transportation, and then we're also going to explore, can we augment some other ways to get people to where they need to go.
Or even anybody who comes, what if we get a bunch of $5 gift cards? Some of them are for gas and some of them are for
Could do
groceries
that,
or
yeah.
something like that, right? Everybody who comes, you get a $5 gift card. So, to sort of augment whatever it is that, some people have to decide, do I pay for gas this week
Right,
or
or
groceries
groceries,
or,
right.
my heating bill or whatever it is. So if we could, even just offset that just a
Explore
little
all
bit.
of those, yeah. Other thoughts, what I'm hearing is that we're gonna start to look at the Palmer model, which is resources all in one place, drop in, walk in, talk to people, let us know what you need, what do you need help with. We're gonna continue to think about transportation, maybe some conversations between now and our next meeting, with the groups that already do it, whether it's PVTA, whether it's Recovery Center, other ways, Quabog Connector, other ways that people can get around. How do we support it? What would be involved with providing, transportation cards, gift cards, something else that we could pay for that would help you do transportation, and think about those things between now and our next meeting. I'll commit myself to reaching back out to, I hear what you're saying, Emily, with the Quabog Connector, just to sort of see where they're at. Again, if anybody wants to talk with PVTA, Neil, if you want to follow up on the idea of folks who might have cars, drivers, I don't know what it would take, and then who might be, for all of this, is there an organization that would kind of be the group that we would fund? Again, I'm thinking about the Recovery Center as well as Quabog Connector, who both know about what you have to do in order to have a van and have drivers who are eligible to do this kind of thing. I can't just drive somebody. I have no qualifications for doing that kind of thing in a way. Anticipating, if we were to get to that point, how we make the case to the select board, because they'll have those questions about who's driving, is there insurance, all of those, because that's what we all have to think about too. Great.
So who's calling PVTA? I'll do it then.
And do it, Neil?
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
I'll put you down for talking to PVTA. Great. All right, sounds good. All right, I'm conscious of time. I want to be sure we have enough time to the school thing. One other just quick update. Believe it or not, yeah, it's the end of April already. I know it feels like I know I was late last year, so it feels like I just did it. But we're coming to the end of the fiscal year, so that means all town committees and all boards have to think about who's going to serve on them for the new fiscal year starting July 1. So I've been getting memos from the town manager's office. Here's what I would ask. If anybody is not going to be able to serve, or you need to rotate off this committee for the coming fiscal year, just let me know. Please let me know maybe by mid-May, because I need to let town manager and that office know. I think it's June 1 is my deadline. They just want to have an idea of how many vacancies are there potentially going to be on committees across the town. So if you need to rotate off, let me know. Otherwise, I'll assume everybody wants to stay on and commit to another year, and I would welcome that. So that's just one thing to remind us all of.
While we're talking about that, can I really quickly remind you that July 1, you need to come in and get sworn in?
Yes, thank you, Joan.
Because
Yes.
otherwise, no votes will be valid.
Yes, thank you. That's the other part of that process is, exactly, thank you for reminding me about that. We need official sworn in people. We are an official town committee. Great. Build up your collection of those little yellow cards.
I know, I was just looking at the date to
And
verify what
there
you
she
said.
goes.
Yes,
Kim
you
has
are,
it right
you are
there.
accurate. It is
You
through
know,
June
I have them
30th.
in my folder as well. Those of you who were on the committee from the start, you're getting
I'll
quite a
my keyboard.
I was going to say, you got quite a collection, but the town clerk will be happy to see us again. Come in and get officially sworn in. So yeah, don't forget about that. Great. All right. All right, we'll talk about our next meeting. Let me make space for folks who are here from the schools. just reminding ourselves as well, I guess I will just set the stage where we're talking about this application. Hopefully everybody had a chance to read through it. We'll give some time for the schools to just give us an overview, present it. I'll entertain questions, comments that people have. If we get to a point where we're ready to vote, just remember that Chris will recuse herself. If we're not ready to vote, I would say we have some time, because if you look at the start of the application, we're looking at an October start. So if we need more time, or if the schools need more time, whatever, we have some flexibility there. I don't want anybody to feel rushed about that. Great. Sean, Chris? I know, Chris just...
She really
She
recused
should
herself.
be back. Oh, you could be here. Anyway, but if you want to wait for Chris?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, she's familiar with it. And
I
I think most people are familiar with the work that the Director of Communities has been doing in town.
Yep.
What this grant represents is ideally a just in case. We are in the process of applying for year 6 through 10. That is due very soon. I like our odds. I like the amount of work that they've done and how much this coalition has grown, and our ability to sell that to be funded for another 5 years. So I am very confident that we will be okay. Gail mentioned that this is early, because it is. We're trying to get this done. But we started trying to do this before this year 6 through 10, what do they call it, NOFO. The notice of funding.
Opportunity, yes. Talk
Before
about...
that one came out, so we were
Right.
kind of panicking. And now we are deep in that process, but I still want to see this one through, because this will represent the 1 year of work in case we don't get it. I'd like to know sooner than later whether we have that, because frankly, we're either going to look to close it or continue the work into October, and I don't want to spend the summer with Chris and Aline just wondering whether or not we're going to be able to work here again in the fall. I think the work that they do speaks for itself. Has grown immensely. This represents kind of a trimmed down, not all of the activities that they have been doing. We took out things like going to, I think in one version of this, we took out things like going to the conference, going to the annual conference, stuff like that we've sort of done. It also typically last year, the opioid funding was used to make Chris and Aline bring them up to 40 hours and 20 hours per week. So this represents that combined. So it's the DFC 36 plus the opioid 4. So it's slightly more than what the typical DFC 125 is, but it is a combination of both of those. When we get the year 6 through 10, we will come back instead and just look for those 4 additional hours. But again, this is the sooner we know, if we're able to maintain it, or if there's questions from this group, then we can answer those. So we're still trying to stay a step ahead, knowing that either we're going to spend the summer looking to close out, or looking to continue going through into October.
Great. Questions, comments, Sean or Chris, maybe just remind folks as well, the application to the feds to renew, you'll find out about that when?
I don't actually know. Do you know?
They said beginning or mid-September. So we need to know
Plenty of
this.
time.
For September
you know,
30, I know, right?
It's
I know,
so
yeah.
crazy. They said
I
beginning
know.
mid-September, and usually it is
starts on-
mid-August to the end of August, and because it's so late,
Yeah.
that's why
Okay.
this is so late.
Cool.
And the only
And
thing I
but-
don't know
Go ahead.
is how we. So ideally, we have this ready to go as our backup plan. Thank you. But then also, if we don't find out until September, how do we then? If you all say yes, this is great, we'd love to support it. I just want to make sure there's a something in there that says when you get the year 6 through 10, you don't also get.
Right,
this.
right.
So we don't have to return it, or just
There needs to be an amendment
Yeah,
to it, though.
something that says
Right.
this is contingent upon not receiving.
Right.
Because we couldn't, I found out at the webinar for the years 6 through 10 grant, the continuation, whatever it is, that you can't hold remaining federal funds to use to fill a gap year. You have to be very specific. We'd have to say right now, we have these funds left to do this one thing, and it can't be, well, let's hedge our bets and like make sure we can pay them through the holidays. It's, we want to do this one event that will occur afterwards. So this would really just be a gap year. We'll have all of those federal funds expended. There will be nothing left on October 1st.
Right, so your plan, that's what was one of my questions, that with your current funding, and you're right, they don't make it easy to even use what you might have left over to carry you for a little while. They used to be more flexible than they are now with, you know, maybe you could survive for a few more months with what might be left over in that gap year. But yeah, now they make it more difficult. So your plan would be, regardless of the outcome of this or the year 6 through 10, that you're gonna try to spend out your money by September. Yeah, I think that's probably wise to do that, okay. So your current funds, at least for now, your staff and your activities, you're good through the end of September?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanna be sure that committee is aware of that,
And
so.
they're literally letting you know that month that the funding is due.
Basically.
If the,
Like a couple weeks before a new grant year would start, yeah,
So is
or
there-
not start, yeah.
So there's the grant for this, or the application for 6 to 10 years. Is that the one we're gonna find out in September?
Yes.
Yep,
Is there any potential that they don't give it?
there is.
There is, so there are, I believe, 120 or so eligible coalitions who can apply for year 6 through 10. They say about 50 awards that they'll give. I really like, I mean, it seems like, yikes, but I like our odds for that. There's gonna be a number of them that don't apply for year 6. This was a very fast turnaround to get your next one in, so a number of them that won't even be able to get it in. Chris and the team have done amazing work, and the application isn't going to be, it's not supposed to be about, here's how great we are, here's why we need more money. It's like, here's what we've done, but here's what we still have left to do, and there's still a lot to do. And the focus of, whether it's this 1 year or our next 5 years, we're really now switching into how do we find other sources of funding that aren't gonna run out in 5 years, are gonna run out in 1 year, and looking at some of the alternative grants, some alternative sources, and really building that capacity to have this continue beyond. If for nothing else, the student group is amazing, and that would be, if that just went away because there was no funding for a person to run it like that, that would be a travesty to the amount of work that these guys have done. And when we get the 6 through 10, I want that group to go and present at the national conference, and I'm looking forward to going to that one. So, like, we've got big plans to do the next phase and really grow it out, and you've had the New Hampshire group, that student group, come down, and our team has learned a lot from them, and really trying to, there's no end. This is the next, what's next, and how do we continue to grow and build, so.
Right. And I guess I assume you all have also had the conversation that if you don't get funded for the year 6 through 10 this coming September, then you're looking at reapplying for full DFC in spring of 26.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
100%.
so that you have, and you know, I think your odds are quite good as well. But I also have seen where great proposals just don't get funded for whatever reason. And they make it through that gap year and then reapply and then they get it, but you do have to, yeah. So I think the concept makes sense. I have some other questions.
I have
Go
a
ahead.
question now.
Sure.
So we, in the meantime, should we put together another application as an amendment ahead of time if we get that grant? Amendment to this, because we're still gonna have to ask for money from the opioid fund if we get
Sure.
the
You're
DSC
talking,
grant.
you're
Yes.
talking about renewing
Your current grant for the extra hours.
funds.
Right.
Right.
I'm also going to probably be looking for additional funds for some other things because we don't have the money to do what we've been doing. we've had carryover money for 4 years now. And so, like, for example, like what I put in here, Red Ribbon Week. You know, I mean, I'm putting it into our budget that we have now, but I know we don't have money in the budget that we're putting together right now for those kids to go to
Right.
our thing in DC. That's not, we're not gonna be able to pay for that out of that grant. Yes,
Out of the grant you're applying,
yes,
the DFC
for
grant.
DFC. But we could, I mean, we have some funding for travel, but not that much.
Okay.
You know, we really don't have a lot coming in. So we probably will apply for additional funds, but that's gonna be separate than what the salary
Right.
is, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
I
my
think those are separate.
yeah,
Yeah.
so my suggestion is to have, go ahead and put through when you have it, the items that are over and above the funding for the hours, separately from
The hours.
the hours.
All right, because that's already, that,
That,
do we have to reapply for those hours again, or is that
I
something?
believe, yeah, I believe.
I think so,
Yeah,
because
because you're,
So I just
We
have to
always find
give
that
you guys an
the
application
same
then?
thing, again, more or less.
Should I do that
'Cause that
after we
was-
find out then?
I would
yeah, I
wait.
think
Because,
so.
I mean, the thing is,
Trying to
after
think of
we
the
find out,
timing
that's
of
a
it
quick
all.
turnaround
I know.
for
I know,
our
right.
salaries.
So, okay, let me ask you this. So say it takes a month for us to catch up with getting everything approved.
Right.
Can you pay out through DFC, right? The full 40 hours, we're just gonna talk about the one thing. And then kind of make up for it in November
Yes,
because we have other money?
yes.
Okay,
Because the DFC, we get all at once.
okay.
Well, I mean, draw down
Right,
what
right,
we need, so we
Yeah.
get all at once.
Right.
I don't think that would be an accounting problem.
Big issue,
Right.
okay.
And because the way they're paid, it all just comes.
Yeah.
And the
I see what you're
reporting will still be the
Correct.
same amount that it should have been, or that it was budgeted
And
for,
it's-
it just will be a little bit different time.
And they both do timesheets just so we can track, but no one's asking for those.
From the
It's not.
original, right, from the,
And we can
okay.
be flexible, especially with the hours, you know, sometimes it's Sunday, sometimes it's Saturday, sometimes it's Thursday night till forever, and then
Yeah.
like, we're not coming in tomorrow, I'm like, good.
Okay, so that's not hair on fire emergency
Okay.
at this moment.
So then once we get word, yes or no,
Mhm.
if yes, then we'll do the amendment right away for this, just the salary.
Just the extra hours.
And then the other
right.
stuff we can do
It's
after.
it's really just a renewal
It is.
of
For
last
last
year's,
year's.
of last year's one.
I just have to, I mean,
So-
the application's
The
already done.
update-
Right, I just have to
updated-
change the numbers a little
Yeah,
bit.
updated wage amounts or hourly, whatever, salary
Right.
amounts.
And that was one of my questions as well, or a couple of questions related to this. Obviously, you know, trying to have this as a backup for DFC funding that doesn't come through, God forbid. But are these the same salaries that you're putting in that application?
Only for 33 hours and only
Okay.
for 20 hours.
Okay,
Because
so these
the
are-
amendment would make up for that.
Gotcha.
Okay,
So
but this
this
is
is-
for the full
Right.
40 and 25.
Yeah, and
Okay.
25,
Yeah,
okay,
just,
gotcha.
just for
But the
some-
salaries themselves,
Yes,
on an hourly basis, are they the same that you're putting in DFC?
Yes.
And I guess, and I don't have your original application, are they the same salaries that were in your extra hours application?
The same salary?
The same salary?
Yeah,
I'm trying
yes.
to figure out, okay, I just wanna make sure that, I anticipate that one of the questions from the select board might be, because everybody's taken a really close look at salaries these days
Mhm.
across all of town government. How does it look from what was already funded? What did you apply for in the DFC grant
Yeah.
itself, which it sounds like it's comparable? And now you'll come back to them, whether it's this application that needs to be funded because you didn't get DFC,
yes.
or the other one gets funded.
Right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
And I
I'm just
will-
checking
I
on
just-
all that.
These salaries do represent an alignment with market trends.
Okay, all right,
Because
that
we
was
have
another
been based on
question,
what we
yeah.
applied for originally in 2020. And they also represent a recognition of the amount of work.
Okay, all right.
The other thing to know, just with some language that I mean, we know what we're talking about when we say extra money, but those extra hours are hours dedicated to work that is not in alignment with the DFC.
Right, exactly,
It is
which is, right.
prevention,
And-
it
right.
is, or not prevention, it's non-prevention. It's the
Right.
stuff that they do, so it's
With a
not
little
like,
more
we like
opioid
Chris, so
focus,
we wanna
right.
give her more hours, it's that this other work also needs to happen as a part of both, we cannot pay that.
Out of
Out
the
of
DFC.
They
We'll be
like-
fine with like, there's a little bit of
Right.
a delay,
Right.
that'll all come out in the wash, but it is.
The
it's not-
reality
it's
is
not an
that you
extra.
can't actually separate prevention
Exactly.
from the treatment stuff, and the reality is that Chris and Aline have been actually
Right.
doing that work, even though it doesn't really fall under the purview of DFC. And so, I know, that's
I
why
know.
I sort of
They
whispered it.
won't.
But the reality is you cannot separate.
I
Like,
know.
it's, you can't just do prevention and not talk about the consequences and not talk about treatment and not deal with people who are suffering currently, and like, you just can't separate that.
Right, you
That's
can't
the
go to like
reality.
the Umbrella Wellness or the 5K and say, I can only talk to you about some things.
I know, right,
Right.
I can't talk to you about, I
Right,
know,
right.
I know,
If
and
I
that's,
happen to drop some Narcan and you pick it up,
that's
fine.
the
Right,
limitation.
right.
Fell out of my pocket.
Right, exactly. And I think that's what, you know, the first application to augment staff hours.
Right, we sort of
made total
recognize that.
sense.
that it-
And it was a good thing to do, and as well, just to remind everybody that, you know, these opioid funds count as matching funds. So you still have to, you know, comply with the feds, so the more, you know, you can show that. So I agree with you, it's really hard to sort of separate it all out. The feds sometimes think it's really cut and dry, but it isn't, but anyway. Other questions about what's in the application, other thoughts, anything else?
I would just put it like, maybe like a cover page, like a disclosure page for the select board, you know, saying, there's two
That's my
applications
next
here.
night. I know,
This
that's,
is-
we're gonna have to walk them through that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just so that they, cause I kinda get spun around a little bit on it too, you know, just,
right,
and I'm sitting here in the meeting.
right. No, you're right, I think you're right, we have to be as clear with them, and that makes me sort of think about, you know, what is the best timing to get this in front of the select board, you know, if and when we're ready to, you know, to bring it to them. I understand, you know, you all wanna know that you have this as a backup, you know, as you wait, and I do expect the feds are gonna be really late with letting applicants know, you know, who got funded, they were late with putting it out in the first place. So, yeah, I think you're right, we're gonna have to walk them through it, sort of, here's where we are now, here's what was applied for, here's the backup plan, you know, and maybe lay out those two scenarios. If the federal money comes through, this is what we're asking you for out of opioid money, or what we're recommending. If it doesn't, here's what we're recommending.
So then in the meantime, I'll get that second application, updated for you then, and I'll just send it out to you, just to
Yeah,
have.
I like Jill said, I don't think it's urgent. I mean,
Yeah,
I think we
just
could
to
wait a
have
little
it,
while, but
right.
just to have it.
But do you
You
think
know,
we
again-
should present both to the select board at the same time and say,
It's a good question.
I know, and say, we're
I know.
asking for this one, but if the other funding comes through from the federal government, we don't want this one, we want this one.
I
So
know.
really, we want them to approve both and be ready for
With the
both to.
contingencies.
Right, with the
for each,
contingencies
right.
that if the federal government, then this one won't be funded and only this one will.
I know.
And if the federal government doesn't, then,
I see.
I know.
I'm,
Jill's
I'm,
like,
I'm putting myself in the role when I was on the select board, and I'm like, how much information do we want to give them,
Right,
and at what
right.
time?
Right.
To me, that's kind of the sequence, but also, obviously, staff people and the schools and BOAT and the community as a whole want to know that they have a backup plan. I guess for me, I wouldn't do any of this maybe until mid-June. I would like everybody
I
to
would
get
think
through the
so.
election, let the town get through
Yeah.
town meeting, bring it to them, and then we'd have to ask them for maybe more time than they have typically given us at a select board meeting, because this is a little more complicated, but it's a good question, how much,
I'm comfortable.
what do you think?
I'm comfortable with just doing this one right now, because this is
Okay.
already contingent upon not receiving funding.
Right.
Okay.
So the more
Okay.
contingencies we add,
The more
I
confusing
know,
it
the
becomes.
more confusing
Yeah.
it
if we
gets.
get
I
this
think
one
you're right,
approved,
okay.
and
One
then
at
we
a
don't
time.
need it, we
Yeah,
don't
then
need
we don't
it,
need it.
fine, here's what we're gonna ask for instead.
But maybe have that other one like
It's
ready to
clearer.
go.
Yeah, it doesn't take, it's just.
We will be ready, and there's plenty of time through September to have a meeting, have it in, have a select board, whatever we need to do, totally.
Without
fine.
any gap in necessarily
Correct.
paychecks or
We-
anything
it will
else,
not
right?
impact
Yeah,
that.
gotcha.
Seems like you need to make a flow chart.
Yeah.
I know, I do think it is a flow chart thing, I
It
tell you,
is.
if this, if
Right,
not
right.
this, yeah, I hear,
But
I
I
think you're
actually
right.
see it in a different light though.
Yeah.
I see it that you go there in June
Mhm.
and then September rolls around and we don't know, and then didn't we just vote on this in June? Reaction? You know
Well,
what I'm
I
saying?
think that
It
that's.
might confuse them more if we
I-
bring something different to them.
Well,
at a
I
different
think
time.
that's where we have to maybe hint at the fact that there's another
Well, then I would say
contingency.
we've got this application, if this and this line up.
Right,
If that doesn't line up, there will be
Then we're
something else
coming
coming
back,
before them.
right,
I would
we're
be
yes.
honest with them and
I
say
agree,
that this
We-
position
right.
needs to be funded either
Yes,
way.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
I would agree, we have to kind of give them a little bit of a sneak preview of what could happen, but to get them at least on record that they might be in support of this backup plan to cover what DFC wouldn't cover if it doesn't happen.
But,
Yeah.
and which one do you bring forward first now, you know?
Well, like you said, I feel like this bigger one
Yeah, it's more
is
important.
more important.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
a-
absolutely.
it's a bigger ask
And for peace
For-
of mind.
and for
Right.
peace of mind,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
So you can
exactly.
sleep at night.
Exactly, exactly.
So do we vote now
Nice
then?
Well, I have one more quick
Okay.
question, and it might be a little picky, and it might be because I'm on the email list for the state organization that tells municipalities what you can and cannot do, and some examples of things that people have tried to use opioid money for that you shouldn't do. But my quick question to the group, and maybe you have some backup evidence, you list a couple of speakers here, and that's the kind of thing that other communities have gotten in trouble for, using opioid money for speakers that the state health department, as well as the group that they fund, doesn't feel like they're evidence-based. So I'm asking you
Yeah.
all, can you get us some backup information about the two speakers that you have listed here? Who deems them evidence-based, so that if, because Jill and I are likely to report on what money was spent, right, every year, that's gonna circle back to us, what, August, September, maybe? Anyway, so that, just to be sure we can back anything up and nobody at the state level flags anything. I don't know that the select board knows enough about that, they'll be more asking about the dollars and cents, I think, but
With-
that just flagged for
With
me.
us, with speakers, with us, we do not do one and done. That does not
Okay,
work.
well, anything that you have,
Right,
that
so
we
it
can
doesn't,
add
run
to
and done
this,
does
right.
not work, but
Yep.
if you couple it with other things that are going on at that time, like for example, Stephen Hill came in last year in the fall, and we paired that up with Red Ribbon Week, Substance Prevention Week, so he kicked it off with his story, and then we did, the Red Ribbon Week,
All
same.
of that, exactly, and their organization, and again, who deems this program evidence-based? That's what the state's gonna ask. Your curriculum that's in here is totally fine, all of that's good stuff. The other two speakers, it's not a huge amount of money, but you have the Chris Sullivan and you have the Kathy Sullivan. So just a little backup, and then some of what you just articulated
Yeah.
can be a part of that. I think it'll help you, and then nothing will get flagged by anybody at the state level.
What do you need from me for that then?
I guess my question is, who deems them evidence-based? Just some narrative about who vouches for the fact that these might be considered evidence-based.
Okay.
And sometimes that might be the CDC, Center for Disease Control, might be some other groups. There's that group that does the Blueprint for Youth Development, the Blueprint for Youth Development, they have a whole website. So just a little backup, and just in case, I'm just trying to anticipate more from the state level, because like I said, I've seen other communities get flagged for that. Lauren?
If it's okay, just to, I think, build off of Gail, what you're sharing. So CareMass also just within the past couple weeks came out with a pretty robust rubric for municipalities.
Oh, good.
And so
Okay.
that
I'll
might
look
also
for
be
that.
something to kind of like cross-check
There you go.
from
Yep.
your budget proposal to what the state is expecting from how settlement funds
Right.
are being
Super.
utilized. And I'm happy to share that.
Please.
I could
Yeah.
pass that
Yeah, if
along
you
if
could, that would be
helpful.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe for all of us,
Yeah,
or
I'd be
send it
happy
to
to share
me.
that. Yeah.
Excellent, yeah, like I said, I just don't want, just having seen what some other towns have done, and,
Oh, that's
it's a little bit of a subtle difference. I mean, some towns have really tried to do unallowable things with these dollars, so this is a little more subtle, but go ahead.
And I guess, sort of jumping off of that, this is not my opinion, but I wonder if the select board members might wonder, so they've already funded for opiates. This is now funding for your entire year, which is not just opiates. So I don't know if there needs to be some sort of statement how to justify, because again, I think you can't separate them, right? You can't. And like for the town to lose you guys for a year or forever would be tragic, honestly. But I don't know if the select board might say, okay, but we've already funded them for the opiate section. Why should we fund them now for the other 33
Broader,
hours
yeah.
of their work day, of their work week? That I just wonder if that's a question that they might pose, and if there should be some sort of statement in here. I don't know.
We want to continue the prevention piece. We have kids
Right.
involved.
Right.
Everything that, like, all the things that Sean said for backup, like, we have kids involved.
Right.
We don't want it to.
I agree. But I wonder if that should be like
That makes
like a
sense.
cover page that just sort of says, we understand that the opioid fund should be used for opiates, and that the 7 hours and whatever.
It's not true necessarily. There's a
It's
prevention
prevention.
piece
You
in
can do
opiates.
broader.
Yeah,
You can do
I
broader,
just
right.
want to make sure that they're not going to get
Right.
stuck
We're trying
on
to
that one
anticipate
piece
their
and sort of
questions.
But the
say,
grant isn't just for, I mean, I know what you're saying, but this grant, when we wrote that other grant, it was specific towards those hours.
Correct.
This is specific towards 2 jobs.
Well, and I
So
would,
you know what I'm
right.
saying?
I
But it's a
understand.
totally different grant.
I would
I
agree
understand
with
that.
Lauren, go back to what the state language is.
Yeah.
Go back to the agreement.
yeah.
Because there is language in there about using opioid dollars for broader
Yeah.
prevention.
And I just want to make
But
sure
you
that
wanna
that is
steal some of
presented
that
to the
language.
select board so that they don't say, well, this is the opioid fund, why would we use it for all these other things?
Yep.
That's all. I just want to make sure that they're aware of the guidelines and the state's recommendations and all that kind of stuff. So
So
that they
there's
don't
no
look at this
reason
and
to
go,
say
oh,
no."
but we did for
Right.
opiates and now they're asking for a whole entire, year's salary. Nope, forget, I just want to avoid that.
Yep.
I would definitely just go to the mass.gov and what the
Yeah, what
definition
is the
of,
name of that group
So
again?
it's care mass.
Care
yeah.
mass, yeah.
and I mean, it basically, the
Steal
opiate
some
distribution in
language
Johnson
from
Township
them.
provide 500 million to the Commonwealth and into cities and towns for prevention, harm reduction, treatment, and recovery across Massachusetts.
I will,
So
I
I
can
would refer right to
also,
that wording
I
and say,
can
I do
also,
have
Yeah.
half of that
can
stuff
dig
there.
out some stuff that I have too. But
maybe-
yeah, if you steal that
Just
language.
like in the
just like that.
presentation of this to them,
Yep.
so that it's not, they don't come back with, well, but we did this part, so why do we now have to expand and cover an
because it's a
entire
totally
year's salary?
different application.
Yeah.
Agreed,
I hear you.
agreed,
I
but
hear
it
you.
just may be viewed
Yeah.
as, we've already done this, why now would we do this?
Yeah, they're gonna see the word opioid abatement, and they're gonna be like, we did opioids.
Right.
We can't use opioid abatement money for prevention because they don't do the research into the actual.
Right, but I would say you put together an umbrella wellness every year, which
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
all of those.
Correct.
It has prevention, treatment,
Right.
recovery,
Yeah.
I mean, you're the catalyst for that.
Right.
Right.
So,
They might not even ask about it.
I mean,
but
they
just-
might not, but I think it's good. We have always said we want to anticipate any questions
Right.
that they would have, the select board. We want to be able
So
to.
the proposal
respond to
is
that.
as,
Another paragraph, am I writing a
Parallel.
page about why? Like, what am I doing here?
Yeah, I guess what I hear is maybe a cover page or maybe some additional information that would at least draw that. So in addition to what we just talked about with the evidence-based stuff, like I said, go to the Care Mass website and maybe look at how they define prevention. And they do define it broadly. You can get away with, trying to do education about alcohol, marijuana, other substances, even though it is opioid, because you're right. There's linkages between all of them. there's even language in there that talks about the link between mental health and substance use. So you can fund mental health initiatives as well. So steal some of that language and just maybe,
Or honestly,
yeah.
just print out that page and
Or
highlight
print
it.
out that page, and maybe we
Yeah.
just attach it and
I
say,
mean,
here's what the
right.
state says.
That would be fine.
Yeah,
Again,
just to cover yourself,
this is,
yeah.
I want you to know, like, I'm not saying that I disagree with any of this.
Yeah.
I'm trying to anticipate if there might be questions, how to just even avoid the questions coming up, to just sort of prevent, like, present it all, like, we understand that, yes, this is what we've done before, but now we're doing this, and this is why, and here's why it all falls under,
Right.
and why this committee has said, that we support it.
Right.
And that way
And-
they
and I-
vote then and there instead
and-
of being like, well, we need to delay.
Right.
Right,
do this.
exactly.
Right.
We've already
And,
done the
and
research.
again, maybe make reference to if you don't get funded. I think the other thing, both content-wise as well as number-wise, so we're looking at 159,000. We have about 300,000 in the bank account or
Our,
so, what do we
our
have?
balance right now is 344,000.
Okay, so
Just a shade above.
44,000. This is bigger. And so I think reminding them that, yep, we'll probably look at applying again in 2026. And again, if you don't get funded then, you might come back at that point. But this is a bigger application than we've brought to them before.
I wonder if we should, how big is that rubric, do you know?
The new one's like 6, 7, 8, around that number of
Okay.
pages.
I mean, it might just be something that we should print out for them
And
anyways.
bring
as
to
a
them.
reference sheet and say,
Okay.
hey, here's a packet
Can you
about
send
what
it in
Yeah.
before?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that they have a chance to look at it.
typically what we
Yeah.
would have done in the past with the 2 applications we funded so far is they get the full application, they get some background info, but yeah, maybe a whole package that then goes to the town manager who gives it to. Remember though, by the time we get to them, there may be some different faces
Yeah,
on the
that's true.
select board,
There
so
will
this
be
will
at
be
least
new.
one
There'll be at
different
least
face.
one different face. So this will all be kind of new to that, whoever that is. But, so, I know for us who have read a lot of this stuff, for them, with everything else that's on their plate, that's, the more info we give them. But yeah, I give a
I
package to the town
guess-
manager.
My question is, like, this is already in our budget narrative, like, what we're doing here. Like, we already have this in, like, I don't understand, like, exactly what more you want from us.
Well, I think we mentioned the 2 things.
Like, I know about the
Evidence.
evidence-based stuff, but as far as, like, this application is specific towards us being full-time, and it has the budget narrative in here, what we do and why we need it. So,
Okay.
I
Yeah,
guess
no,
I
I
don't
think
know
that
what
part's-
else, I'm just,
Well, we're thinking about making sure that we're anticipating any question they have about the content, particularly because this is going to cover more than opioids, right? So what are the 3 drugs or 2 drugs you're proposing
Yeah.
in your DFC application this year? Alcohol, marijuana, vaping, tobacco,
yeah, 3 of those
nicotine?
3.
Okay. So, we're now saying, and this is new to them,
Yeah.
we're now saying that there's, other stuff there.
Okay.
And then I guess, and maybe it is just a matter of stealing what the state already has put together, that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, just to be sure they know that, other substances and prevention are allowable.
Right.
Plenty of other communities are doing that. In fact, they're doing exactly what you're asking us to do, because their local DFC is also applying, and if they don't get it, they want opioid money as the backup. So it's not unusual that you'd be asking for that. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, making the connection
I can
that this is
throw something
okay
in.
underneath these funds.
Yeah.
Cut out what I put in.
Other
And
comments
to-
or questions?
And to
Keep going.
clarify, our FY24 receipts into this fund were $179,000. So, as much as 344, wow, we're taking half, it's not really, because it's cumulative
Right.
year after
That's
year.
right.
So,
So we're just
Just-
taking that 1 year and turning it right back around.
right,
Right.
which is
Yeah, it's
absolutely
right.
reasonable. I guess
Mhm,
that's why
totally.
I wanted to mention it, is
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I appreciate
Not just
hearing that, yeah.
wiping out
Oh,
half
right.
of the
Right.
fund.
Right.
It's-
More is
right,
coming
yeah.
in, right, exactly, and that's a good thing to remind them as well, that the select board, that, this is multi-year, and, should you be in the position where you'd have to come back and ask for the same thing? A year.
Do we
a year
know
from
what the
now.
deposit is gonna be in 2025? I know there's a million different charts, and there's
Exactly.
right,
Um,
but do we anticipate it being similar?
It'll be
Or is there
similar.
a way to, okay, so
yeah.
that might
We
be,
have received 84, just about 85,000 so far in this fiscal year. And I know we have some more that's
More
supposed
that's coming in.
coming in.
so Gail, when it's
We're good.
presented to the select board, that might be part of it too, is
exactly.
like, yes, this seems like a big chunk of what we have, but also we
Remember
anticipate a very similar amount over the 2025 year to be, refunded into
Right.
the,
Exactly,
into the fund.
exactly.
And anticipate this is a one-time ask.
Correct,
Right, right,
right, we
Totally.
hope,
right, and,
and even not even needed,
Right.
hopefully, but.
hopefully, right, exactly. And I think we have noted as well, and I haven't heard otherwise, and, maybe we'll check in with them one more time. The other proposal that we did fund with the after-school program at the middle school, we have heard that they are not looking for funding for this cycle. So, this, and I want to get to just briefly talking about next meeting, and I know we're going over a little bit of our time. So that proposal won't come in. We do have something from Honest Beginnings, but yes, remind them that we're not wiping out the fund, all of that.
Honestly, we have a program here that is working, like
Right.
it's effective.
Right.
And if that's all we spend these funds on year after year,
Right.
Right, not the
we
worst
know
thing.
we know
No,
it's
it's
effective, an
Absolutely.
effective program.
Absolutely.
That's
Right.
just reality, and there are worse problems to have.
Right.
Yep, totally.
Thanks.
And the DFC model, and you all, I always say the DFC model is a recipe. The cake doesn't always come out the same, because it's supposed to be, each community applies it. But when you do the recipe, as you all are doing, it works. So we are overall, the DFC model, drug-free communities, has been evaluated to be effective. So you're right, that's a good investment in and of itself to keep it going. And like I said, I know of other communities they're doing the same thing, and thank goodness the opioid funds are there to apply for as a backup, because you never know, what's gonna happen. Cool. Other questions, comments, anything else? Do we feel ready as a group? I'll look to the committee. You feel ready as a group to take a vote? All right. I'll entertain if somebody, and I'm gonna make absolute notes that we took a actual vote.
Yeah.
You're gonna do that? I'll entertain a motion if somebody wants to make a motion. I know we're trying to be more formal when we get to actual votes. I'm gonna make a motion about this application.
I move the grant that we approve, bringing forward the grant for coverage of the gap year in DFC to the board.
Second.
I also would like to add, 'cause the two, if-thens, so,
Okay,
you know what I'm saying? So have we gone forward with her, is it 4 hours? Or 5?
I got an additional 7 and Aline got an additional 5.
Have we voted on that one too?
No,
no, that one, it doesn't
Actually,
end
new.
until the fall.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Yeah, so
Okay, never
their
mind.
current
Never mind.
funding carries
Okay,
you to the
yeah,
fall,
all
right?
right.
The
I'm
extra
sorry to interrupt you,
hours.
Jill.
Yep, no
It's
worries,
okay, you're fine.
no worries.
And I have a second.
I second.
Okay, I've got a vote, got a second. We'll go through and maybe just everybody, I'll do a roll call. Vote yay or nay?
Yay.
Aye.
Yay.
Yay, aye, yes.
Abstain.
That's right, you need to recuse. All right, so we
Okay.
have
1, 2,
a
3,
quorum, that's four of
5.
5 of us. We've got the quorum of eligible voting members, 5 out of 7 vote yay. Great, and then we'll think about, give you some time, maybe again, try not to reinvent the wheel, whatever language you want to attach, or we'll look for that rubric. We'll try to get in front of the select board
Sometime like probably mid-June.
mid-June,
Yeah.
that's what I think
Let
would
them
make
get
sense.
their seats warmed up over
Yeah.
here.
Get
It'll be a new chair.
whoever the
it'll
new
be
chair,
like,
right,
It's just
yeah,
gonna
okay.
be,
Cool, all right, so that gives us some time.
And so what I'm writing for you guys is it for you to present, or is it gonna go to the committee?
The next thing is to go to the select board.
So
We can't allocate
whatever
anything.
So we
write
will,
up is going to
yeah,
the
yes.
select board.
and
we
it's
as
will
a
add it
clarification.
to,
Anything
like, one of the
huge.
first suggestions was like a cover page, and so
Yeah.
there's 3
Yeah, you can
components.
just add a little
Cause I
language.
don't wanna start messing with the application
No,
that you've
right,
already
Right, no,
voted it
good
through.
idea.
That goes
Yeah.
with, and we have these 3 items, the highlighting specific connections to the rubric, the grant, the opioid use, whatever, hinting at the contingency and like being specific, this is a gap year.
Yep.
Yep.
Request, and then the evidence-based connection for speakers.
Great.
Yep.
And
And just, and I would agree, simple is probably
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At the top, there'll be, if there's questions.
Perfect, yep.
Anticipating some of your questions.
right, exactly.
We'll make an FAQs document.
And we're happy to have, school folks, both of you or others, whoever, actually be there that night. I will also, try to get on their agenda, again, things are really busy in town government right now, but also ask for maybe a longer time, so that you have plenty of time. We have plenty of time for the committee, obviously I'm there as well. The committee's in support of this. Here we are to answer your questions, and we hope you'll vote favorably on this. Cool. All right, sounds good. I know we're running really late. I appreciate everybody's time. What I gave, thank you all.
Thank you all.
For being here. I handed out, and again, my apologies for not getting it to you sooner, but you have, it's a double-sided copy. I'll also email it out. This is the proposal from Honest Beginnings
Yep.
about their enrollment fees for new enrollees into their program, plus a bit of expenses to help, so that it's not a barrier for anybody to join their program. I seem to recollect that we took a vote on the enrollment fees already, but Jill and I were also trying to find absolute, confirmation of that. Does it sound like we did or we didn't?
Oh, we did, I think we did.
I thought we did. I thought we said, I thought it was 700.
I know,
It was 700, yeah.
Yes.
And then 300.
right. So maybe we could do it again. I guess, maybe just to be on the safe side. I want to give folks a chance to read through this. It is, they put some numbers to it, so the amount of money per enrollee, and then their estimation of how many in a year, that they might serve. And they have also some language in there about, so say, for example, we have more or fewer enrollees than we anticipated in a 2 or 3 month period, we've got, here's how we'll use those dollars. But just to be on the safe side, it might make sense for us to read through this, put it on our next meeting agenda, or I'm open to the idea of an extra meeting. I know everybody's busy, but if we want to get this done sooner. So let's talk about when we could and might next meet.
So I saw that you had indicated possibly the 19th or wait till June 2nd.
Yeah.
Because Chris and I want to meet about that, bi-monthly.
Yep.
I think if we meet on the 19th, we bring in Sergeant Burns from Palmer.
From Palmer, okay,
And
all right.
if he can do it, and then we can also discuss this as well.
Okay, great.
I can't.
No,
I'm out of
you-
town.
No, you're out of town on the 19th?
Oh.
You're out of town too?
No,
Um,
19th would work better for me. I'll be moving June 1st.
Oh,
So,
wow,
Just
okay.
as Sunderland, I'm not moving away.
It's town elections.
It is. Does that prohibit us from meeting?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I know, I made a note that it is town election, and I couldn't remember whether,
Oh.
that makes it a challenge to actually have a committee meeting on town election day. I don't know.
I mean, I can do the 2nd. That's no problem. It's
Okay.
just, I'll be moving the day before, so I might be a little disheveled.
It's quite all right. As long as you're dressed, we don't
Yeah.
care,
I think I can handle that part.
Would that be
I'm on a
doable?
vacation day on the 2nd.
You're on the 2nd on vacation day?
I'm also out of town that day.
Okay.
I'm texting the clerk right now.
Oh, okay, great. Let's find out if we could, I don't know whether, do other town committees not meet or other boards not meet on election
no
day? I
idea.
can't remember.
It's usually the the select board on Monday and they wouldn't meet.
Okay. All right, well, let's see
Which
if we
makes
get,
sense because they're in flux.
So
right,
I have
right.
notes about us talking about,
I have tons of notes
but
about
I don't
talking
have
I know,
anything
but
about
don't
we
vote.
voted or
Okay.
passed. I mean, I just
All
wrote
right.
today passed, so I think I
Yeah,
would have
I
written
know, and
X, so I
I-
don't know that we voted on
I
it.
Okay.
generally write the score, you
Yeah,
know.
I have,
5-0-1
I have
and-
notes about, we talked
Okay.
about this and this is
well,
what we
then let's
decided,
do it
so.
to be sure we can do it officially and all of that, and then potentially bring, depending on the outcome of that, we'll bring that to the select board as well. All right, so we're waiting to hear about.
We just can't have a hearing.
Oh, okay. This is not an official public hearing.
No.
So we could meet on the 19th. Thank you, Jill. Good,
You're welcome.
fast texting. So Monday, May 19th at 10 a.m.?
Sure.
I'm out of town,
Oh,
but I don't have to be here.
okay.
I can vote in absentia. Can I vote in absentia?
Like via GoToMeeting, if we could get it to work?
Oh, I may be able to get on GoToMeeting.
All right.
Or I could FaceTime. I could call in. I could
Okay.
just be on speaker.
Oh, there we go. Speakerphone. That would work,
Sure.
right?
So we're doing May 19th.
It sounds like we're in agreement that May 19th, maybe with Kim calling in. Anybody else? Okay, so May 19th. All right, 10 a.m.
Right, because I won't be voting on that. Just as a
Right, that's right, because
reminder.
you're on the board of
So,
Honest Beginnings, right? So we'll need a quorum of
Yeah.
other
Okay.
members.
I
So
should be
you'll
able to. I
vote.
should be able to call in.
Okay, cool.
At least call in and be.
All right, great. So in between now and then, read the application, you know, develop questions. If you have questions, like I said, it's pretty clear to me. And then last but not least, before we adjourn, if you really want to dive into it, May 27th is the day-long conference that these mass care folks are, Care Massachusetts, I guess they call themselves. They're doing it via Zoom. I assume, Lauren, you're probably going to be in on it. I'll send out the link. It's all day, 9 a.m. to 4:30.
I'm doing it.
And it has different workshops and whatnot. I'll note that particularly in the afternoon, there's some local programs sharing what they did. And in fact, one of them, Kim, that Boston Overdose Fund Support Fund is one of them.
Yeah.
So they're gonna present on how they've done it. Folks from Greenfield are gonna present. Anyway, so the afternoon,
I'm working all day.
Say again?
that day.
My old boss is presenting.
Oh, yeah?
Harm reduction.
Oh, cool.
On
So,
vending
yeah.
machines versus vending machines versus.
Oh, yeah, the one about Nalox boxes versus harm reduction vending machines. So there's some interesting topics. After today's meeting, I'll send out the link. You don't have to go anywhere. You can be in your pajamas. You can drop in probably, if you can just do the morning or just do the afternoon, I assume you can just drop in whenever. And it's free, so, all right, cool.
True enough.
All right,
I walked over, so I'm gonna jump with you.
are we ready to adjourn? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everybody, for hanging in there longer. Good conversation.
We have our meeting right now.
Thank you, BCTV.
Thanks, Lou.